Thank you everybody for joining us on the webinar today. We are good to go. A few more attendees will join us over the next few minutes, but we are going to go ahead. So, my name is Arabella and I am the Congress's Communications and Outreach Officer here at ISIS, which is based in Freiburg in Germany, and I will give you a short introduction into the work ISIS does, as we have many new participants joining us on the webinar today. So ISIS is a UN-accredited membership-based organization founded in 1954. And ISIS represents a diverse membership of academics, researchers, energy practitioners, consultants, students, businesses, and advocates from all around the world. Our vision is 100% renewable energy for all, used efficiently and wisely. And ISIS works together with like-minded organizations such as the IEA SHC from countries all around the world to advance the renewable energy transformation. Here at ISIS, we have a few key activities we undertake to advance our mission. One of the key activities are our biannual congresses, which take place all around the world. And you will see that we have one coming up just this year, and that's Eurozone 2022. And I'm going to talk about this a bit later on. Then we have two key publications. One is the Solar Energy Journal, which many of you will know. It's one of the oldest and well-established journals there are in solar. And then we just added a new journal to it, which is called the Solar Energy Advances Journal. And that is our very first fully open access publication. Another key activity, of course, is the webinars, such as we have today, and also education initiatives we undertake at our conferences. We also publish infographics, and we just launched a virtual solar energy museum to trace the history of solar and its development. And as we are a membership-based organization, we invite everybody on the webinar today to join ISIS and to support our work. And for the members on the call, we very much appreciate your support. Now, I want to get into details of the webinar today. We will hear 3 presentations, which then will be followed by a Q&A session. So you, the audience, can submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar, and I'm going to explain a bit further on how we do that. So when you're listening, or as you are attending the live webinar today on June 21st, you submit your questions in the chat box, and please keep the questions short and precise. You can submit them anytime through the webinar. You don't have to wait until we get to the Q&A session. And the questions will then be answered in live by the speakers at the end after the presentations. If you are catching us on the broadcast on June the 23rd, you can also submit your questions via the chat box, and again, keep them short and precise. And you too can also submit your questions anytime throughout the broadcast as you watch it. You will then receive an automated response, and your questions will be exported, and we will answer them in a separate Q&A session, which is after the broadcast. Again, this is a separate Q&A session. And if you want to register for that separate Q&A session still, the link to register is in your confirmation email you got for this webinar. So you can still register for it if you catch us on June the 23rd. But now, obviously, we want to get into the webinar for today. And it's my great pleasure to hand over to our moderator for today, which is Pedro Diaz. He is the Secretary General of Solar Heat Europe, which is based in Belgium. Pedro holds a management degree from the Instituto Politécnico de Viana del Castelo, and he has extensive experience in both the private sector and the non-governmental sector. So Pedro, it's my great pleasure to have you back on our webinars, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Arabella, and thank you very much for the invitation to speak and to participate again in this webinar. And as I said, thank you to ISIS. So I represent Solar Heat Europe, so the trade association for the solar heating and cooling sector in Europe. And some of you that have attended will know that I've been also moderating these in the past, and it's always a big pleasure for me. So it's quite an interesting discussion we have today ahead of us, besides the presentation of the new reports, also knowing more about the Chinese market, but also solar heat globally. And as you know, this event is foreseen to take 1.5 hours. So the introduction and the presentations will last approximately 1 hour, and then we'll have the 30 minutes for the Q&A session, as Arabella was explaining, so you can ask your questions during the presentations, and we'll take them at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the first speaker, which will start with the pre-introduction before the reports. He will then follow up, but first he will let us know about the IEA SHC and its Solar Academy. So the speaker is Werner Weiss. Werner is one of the most reputed experts in the sector. I have the pleasure to know Werner for many years, but not as long as he's been in the sector, because he's really a presence and has had over the years an outstanding contribution to heating and cooling, and is very well renowned internationally and involved in different bodies, from the IEA Solar Heating and Cooling Program to the European Technology Innovation Platform on Renewable Heating and Cooling, and different other entities. So Werner is coming from the INTEC in Gleisdorf, and is also in charge with a very strong team of the preparation of the report we will hear about soon. But first of all, Werner, can you please let us know a bit more about the Solar Academy?
Thanks a lot, Pedro, for the introduction. Just give me a second. I will present first, as it was mentioned by Pedro, the Solar Academy. So I'm not sure if you can see it now.
Yes, we can see. Not in presentation mode. Yes, now it is good. Yes.
Okay. Good. So as it was mentioned by Pedro, I will quickly introduce the Solar Academy of the IEA Solar Heating and Cooling Program. As it was mentioned several times already, today we are focusing on solar heating and cooling markets and industry trends. And it's this webinar is a combination or a cooperation between ICES and the IEA Solar Heating and Cooling Program. The Solar Heating and Cooling Program is one of the oldest IEA research cooperations. One of the oldest R&D collaborations. It was established already in 1977. At the moment, we have 19 member countries and the European Commission, and in addition, 8 international organizations. And to date, about 200 experts from all over the world working together in our 8 running solar projects, focusing on solar water management, industrial solar heat, compact thermal energy storage, also solar district heating systems, but also solar cooling for the Sunbelt regions especially, and in the building sector on solar neighborhoods. And the most recent task or project is focusing on solar hot water systems for 2030. The Solar Academy, there we try to distribute the information we have gained in the different projects, distribute it to other people. And what we do is these webinars held quarterly. And I already want to announce the next webinar. It's going to be on September 13th and 15th. And the topic will be solar cooling for the Sunbelt region. So if you want to join us there, this is the next topic and the next webinar. Then we always also produce videos. These are interviews with solar experts, and also all our Solar Academy webinars. You can look at it at our YouTube channel. And we also provide on-site and online trainings on solar heating and cooling technologies. But this is done on request, and then experts from the IEA Solar Heating and Cooling Program are going to the different countries and present the results of our projects. Of course, you can visit our website, as you can see it here, or follow us on social media and on our YouTube channel. If you have questions to the IEA Solar Heating and Cooling Program, just get in contact with our secretariat. You can see the email address in the bottom here. So with this, I think I could give you a quick overview on the IEA Solar Heating and Cooling Program and the Solar Academy. It was mentioned already by Arabella. We are doing the next event together. It's the Eurozone conference in Kassel in September in Germany. And my last slide here is part of this Solar Academy is also that we published this Solar Heat Worldwide report, which I will present in a minute. I have just to switch to the other presentation.
Very good. Thank you very much, Werner. So we will have then the presentation of the report. You know, as you know, this is a reference report for the solar heating and cooling sector globally. It's done since 2005, if I'm not wrong. So, Werner, and it's quite important for the sector to have this data aggregated globally, and it's always a very good indicator of the evolution, but also the trends on the sector. So it's a very interesting reading also in that regard that we surely recommend. So with this said, let's move then to the presentation, Werner. Thank you very much.
I hope you can see my slide, Pedro. Just give me an indicator.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, we do.
Thank you. You can see what you can see here now. We have a new appearance for those of you who know the report already for a long time. We have a new graphic design this year. Hope it gets a little bit better readable and the message out. This is this year's the cover page, and I give you at the end of my presentation also the link where you can download this document, which has 85 pages, so I can just show you the main results of the report. No, wrong direction, sorry. Starting with the global solar thermal capacity in operation, you can see here the evaluation of the solar thermal installations. Global solar thermal capacity grew from 62 gigawatt in the year 2000, as you can see on the left-hand side. It's about 90 million square meters, and it grew to 522 gigawatt installed capacity related to 750 million square meters in the year 2021. So we had a significant growth, even if the growth rate is slowing down, but this is really going up. And on the same time, you can see on the orange line, the global solar thermal energy yield, so the energy output, and this grew from 51 terawatt hours in the year 2000 to more than 400 terawatt hours in 2021. So there's a significant contribution to the energy supply system. In total, 15 million solar thermal systems are installed worldwide. So this is really a significant number of systems installed worldwide. If you look on the annual installed capacity and net additions between 2001 and 2021, you can see here in the blue bars the annual installed capacity of the systems. And on the other hand, the orange line shows you the net additions in gigawatt. And net additions is because we assume a technical service lifetime of the systems of 20 years. So we always take out the old systems. So therefore, these are the net additions. And the good news is after 7 years of decline of the global market, we had again in 2021 a 3% increase of the global solar thermal market. The really good news is the top solar thermal markets in 2021. I have to mention here, we consider here or just take into account the 20 leading countries. There might be a very small, or there are small markets. They might have also good growth rates, but we take here the 20 major markets into consideration. The biggest growth rate was with 83%, the market growth in Italy. This was driven mainly by construction activities combined with a tax reduction scheme called Super Bonus for energy efficient buildings. So there's really a strong policy behind it in Italy, and this supports really this growth market growth. Then we had Brazil with 28%, United States 19%, Greece, Poland, and India in the same range between 16 and 18%, and also Mexico, so the leading countries. Unfortunately, on the opposite trend, we had in Denmark a reduction of the market or decrease of 45% in 2021. It was mainly due to the fact that of the collapse of the solar district heating market. And again here, policy played a major role. Folk have slightly different focus now since 2 years. So this is also changed this trend in Denmark. And we had also some market declines in some other countries like Spain, Cyprus, South Africa. Showing you the top 10 countries of the cumulated water collectors installations. So that's the total installations we have worldwide at the moment. You can see, of course, this did not change a lot or not significantly, whereas the major market is still China. So it's really the dominating market worldwide, followed by Europe with about 12% of the total installed capacity. And then you have North America with US and Canada, Latin America, Asia, excluding China, so mainly India, and they are in the range of 3 to 4% of the global installations, and then the MENA region with 1.5%, and Australia and New Zealand with 1.4%. So this just shows you there's really a dominating market by China in absolute terms. This is also shown here in the top 10 countries of the accumulated installations. Then you can see here China is cut on top. They have installed about 364 gigawatt installed capacity. And then it's followed by Turkey, United States, Germany, Brazil, India, Australia, Mexico, Greece, and Italy. And what you can see, it's in absolute terms what is installed. And the different colors gives you an indicator of the different types of collectors which are installed. So the yellow ones are the unglazed collectors, so mainly used for swimming pools, dominating in the United States and to a certain extent also in Australia. And then you have the blue parts, they are evacuated tube collectors, and flat plate collectors are the green collectors. So you have different markets in terms of collectors. If you look at the same markets, the top 10, but per 1,000 inhabitants, this shows you more about the market penetration. Then you see Barbados is leading with 600 kilowatt installed capacity per 1,000 inhabitants. So this is almost 1 square meter per person in Barbados, followed by Cyprus, Israel, Austria, Greece, the Palestinian territories, and then you have China is number 7 on the worldwide scale in terms of installed capacity per inhabitant. So in terms of market penetration, other countries are leading ahead of China. Of course, China, huge country with a big population, in absolute terms, they're leading. What's also interesting, and this is changing gradually, on the worldwide scale, the most used collector are evacuated tube collectors with 68% or 69% of the total installed capacity, or the newly installed capacity in 2021. And on the worldwide scale, close to 25% are flat plate collectors. And this is, when I mean world, it's again, as you saw in my previous slide, it's dominated by the Chinese market. So it's mainly what you see here. It's really the Chinese market dominated by evacuated tube collectors. If you look to Europe, completely different or the opposite picture. You have 80% flat plate collectors and about 17% evacuated tube collectors, and then air collectors and unglazed water collectors. And what is interesting, over all the years, we see a trend that on the European side, flat plate collectors are losing slowly but constantly the market share in terms of percentage. So and evacuated tubes are growing slowly but growing every year. And on the other hand, on the worldwide scale or Chinese scale, if you want, evacuated tube collectors lose a little bit on market share, and flat plate collectors are coming up more and more in this. So this is an interesting trend we observe already for more than 10 years. Another important thing is, so depending where you come from, you have a different picture of solar thermal systems. As you can see here on the worldwide scale, it's just 36% of the total installed new installations are thermosiphon systems, and the rest are pumped systems. But if you go to Asia, so excluding China, so mainly India and other countries, then it's basically the total market are thermosiphon systems. You have the majority of thermosiphon systems also in Latin America with 85%, 64% in Sub-Saharan Africa. But even in Europe, it's not the EU. In Europe, we also count Turkey, for instance. Then it's about 58% is thermosiphon systems and 42% are pump systems. It's just to give you an idea about the total market, so how they're really different markets. Important to note is small-scale solar heating systems represent still about 60% of the world's annual solar thermal installations. This is one example of a solar combi system. That means it's used for hot water preparation, but also for space heating. Therefore, the collector area is relatively steep installed because it's also used for space heating during winter time. But this is also what we summarize under small-scale systems. It can be systems like this, but a lot of these small-scale systems, like here, one of the thermosiphon systems installed in Mozambique. So these are the dominating, it's about 60% of the world's annual solar thermal installations. If we go to large-scale systems for district heating and large residential, commercial, and public buildings, then you can see this really steep increase in the collector area. And what's also interesting to see maybe is in the bars, you see the light blue bars starting in 1985 to 2021. The light blue bars show you the installations, number of installations in Europe, and it was dominated, the whole large-scale systems market was dominated until 2017 by European countries, and then China took over from 2018 onwards. You can see the orange parts. This is what was installed in China. So really strong installations in China, but also in other countries, as you can see here in this, whatever it is, purple color. By the end of 2021, we had 530 large-scale systems documented. And what we mean with large-scale, it's bigger than 500 square meter or bigger than 350 kilowatt installations. And the total capacity of these systems is 1,970 megawatt, corresponding to 2.8 million square meter of collector area. Last year, 44 new large-scale systems were installed, about 142 megawatt. Out of this, 20 in China, 14 in Europe, 7 in Turkey, and 3 in Mexico. And if you go for the biggest subsector of these large-scale systems are solar district heating systems. And I guess, as most of you know, the dominating country in terms of installed capacity and systems is Denmark, with 125 systems or 1.6 million square meter installed collector area. And then followed by China with, at the moment, with 41 systems. And then Germany 45, but with a lower capacity. This is the dark blue bars show you the installed capacity. And then followed by Austria with 22 systems, 7 systems in other European countries, and so forth. You can look at it in detail if you download the overall report. But in total, we have 299 solar district heating systems in operation with 1.6 gigawatt. 2021 was dominated, at least in Europe, by smaller solar district heating systems. One of them is here. It was installed in Friesach in Austria with a capacity of 4.1 megawatt. So they're smaller than we used to show in the big systems in Denmark, where a single system was significantly bigger, but last year was dominated by, I would say, smaller scale, large scale systems, if I can put it in this way. Solar heat for industrial processes, I don't go very much in detail here because Bärbel Epp will go more in detail on this topic. Just the number, industrial process heat at the moment, close to 1,000 systems, 975, with 1.23 million square meter of collector area. What you can see here on this slide might be interesting is a flat plate, high vacuum flat plate collector for the company Martini and Rossi and in Turin in Italy. So this is why I mention it. We can go also to higher temperatures with this evacuated flat plate collectors. Solar process heat applications, what is still interesting to see that the main applications in terms of number are food and beverage industry. So this is really the main sector where these systems are applied, even if the biggest systems with about 14 documented systems at the moment are in the mining industry, dominated by the Chilean copper mining systems. And in terms of number of systems, most of the systems are installed in Mexico with 89 systems are installed for industrial processes in Mexico, followed by Germany, India, Austria, United States, China, and so forth. Then you can see where the main markets are at the moment for solar industrial process heat. And I think there's more to come in the upcoming years with the increase of the gas prices and the energy prices. So there's a lot of interest now from the industry to go towards solar. Finally, the last technology I present is PVT, so the combination of photovoltaic and thermal systems. These collectors produce electricity and heat at the same time. This is really also a success story of the last years. In total, 1.4 million square meters of PVT collector area is installed. And this is one of the systems in Switzerland installed on a Minagi house. And it shows in total we have 6,000 new PVT systems were commissioned in 2021. So it's quite a number of systems. And the accumulated number of PVT systems in operation is about 34,000 systems already installed, representing, as I mentioned before, 1.4 million square meters. And then we have to distinguish between heat and power, 750 megawatt thermal and 254 megawatt electricity. So that just then you see also the relation between the power and the heat output of the systems. Where are the main market of PVT? Mainly in Europe with 61%, dominating, then it's 21% is China, Asia without China, and about 10% of the PVT systems up to now are installed in China. If you go to Europe, you see it's dominated by France with 42%, followed by 9% of the systems installed in Germany, 6% in Netherlands, and then you have 1% in Spain, Italy, Switzerland, and the other European countries. And my almost last slide, it's the global market development. You can see here we have significant market development. On average, between 2017 and 2020, it grew by 9%. Just in 2021, the global market grew by around 13%, and the European market was even higher with a growth rate of 21%, which is really a good success story, at least on the European scale, with 21% increase just in the last year. Last slide, the environmental effects and contribution to climate goals. What you can see here, the solar thermal yields about 425 terawatt hours, and all these systems avoid 147 million tons of CO2. It's what we avoid with all these solar thermal systems. So I hope I could give you an overview on the main content of Solar Heat Worldwide of this year's edition. If you're interested in more details, in all the tables, in all detailed information, you can download it from the IEA Solar Heating and Cooling website, go to publications and just download the overall report with all details. And with this, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Werner, for the very interesting presentation. So you have let us know that we still have a lot to do in order to catch Barbados in terms of solar thermal capacity per capita, or France in terms of PVT. So we will for sure return. There are already some questions being put forward by the participants that we will address at the end. So we will now move to the next presentation. I think this webinar is also a sign of times, and we actually have a majority of women involved in this webinar today. So this is one more reason for me to be very honored to present the next speaker. So Rijin Jang is a professor at the China Academy of Building Research, also chief engineer at the National Center for Quality Supervision and Testing of Solar Heating Systems. And in their work, Professor Zheng focuses on energy efficiency and solar applications in buildings and manages national and international research projects and cooperation, being also an author of several technical books and having received important accolades. So now Professor Zheng will let us know more about China and the developments in what is the world's largest market. Professor Zheng, please, so the floor is yours.
Okay. 好了，应该现在应该可以了。然后你问一下，可不可以看见那个什么
Okay, so we can see the presentation now.
Oh, okay, you can
yes.
see?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to introduce China's solar thermal developing in this webinar. And the contents have 4 parts. The first is background. China has a very rich solar resource in the world. Even in the worst area, the solar irradiation is the same as most of countries in Europe. So China has a better condition for solar application. China's solar application started at the end of 1970s. And one important event is foundation of China Solar Energy Society in 1979. And since then, through more than 20 years efforts, China has been the largest market of the total capacity since in operation since 2005, and the ratio account for 72.3% of the world in 2021.哦 ，OK， 不是这个不行，你这
可以说
不是我的这个视频那个 PPT 看不着了，对，啊对，而且你这个也看不着。Sorry， 这怎么往下走不了了呢？死掉了。As climate change is a serious problem to all countries in the world, and many countries make their own carbon reduction object. So China is also no exception. Our goal is carbon peaking by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2030. As increasing the application of renewable energy is an important way to achieve this goal. So solar thermal get a better new chance for developing. From present status, we can see this turning. From 2014 to 2020, the newly installation of solar thermal have continued to decline, but in 2021, the growth rate changed to positive. From type of application in China, we can see domestic solar hot water still the major application type. But in these years, the solar heating convey systems increased faster. The share of pumped system has been increased for several years, and it is in 2006 only 25%, but in 2021 changed to 74%. At the same time, the share of flat plate collectors was increased. In 2009, it is only about 5%, but in 2021 changed to 26% about. Next, I will introduce 4 demonstration projects. This is a domestic hot water system located in Qingdao City, Shandong Province. The completion time is November 2021, and it is finished by Guangdong 5-Star Solar Energy Company Limited. This system can supply hot water to 19 residential buildings, and in each family install 60 liter water storage tank. And using a flat plate collector, the area is 1,780 square meters. As the clean heating pilot work is placed on since 2017 in northern part of China, so it promotes faster developing for solar space heating. This project is a solar space heating system, and it's a solar assisted water and air source heat pump system. The location of this project is Guyuan County, Ningxia Province. It is finished by Miko Technology Group Company Limited, and the completion time is in 2020. Total heating area is 21,934 square meters, and using a flat plate collector. The system's solar fraction is 68%. Next is a solar district heating in Saga County of Tibet. The completion time is November 2019. The completed company is Shandong Solix Solar Energy Technology Company Limited. This system has heating area is 81,000 square meters, and using large size of flat plate collector, the area is 18,000 square meters. And the volume of central water storage tank is 4,500 cubic meter. This solar district heating is located in Zhengba County of Tibet. The completed company is Solar East Holding Company Limited. The time of completion is October 2021. This system has two special characters. The first is it is located at the highest elevation in the world. The elevation is more than 4,000 meters. Another character is it is largest area system with 100% solar fraction in the world. And the system collector type is flat plate collector, and the area is 32,175 square meters. The volume of central water storage tank is 15,000 cubic meters. And this system's collector has a higher efficiency. The average efficiency value is 50.3%. So from this project, we get some experience and realize our what's enough, not enough, so we can make following plan. The the first director is we should develop a new type of solar collector, especially flat plate collector with higher working temperature and higher efficiency. And we should put some performance regulations in our national standards. In 2022, important national standard, General Code for Energy Efficiency and Renewable Application in Buildings came into operation. And in this standard, there is a key clause. It is the solar systems, including solar thermal system and or PV system, should be installed in new buildings. And this standard can strongly promote solar application in future. In west part of China, having rich solar source. So in this area, we should extend solar district heating projects. This is another direction. And at the same time, we also should to promote developing of solar heating combi systems and the PVT systems in single or multiple family houses. And the last direction is to develop solar thermal process such as solar drying and seawater desalination. So from above analysis, we can get next conclusion. The first, solar thermal is still the key solution for domestic hot water and space heating without excessive fossil energy consumption. The second, high performance solar collector, solar combi system, and PVT technologies should be developed in the future. Although with the progress of carbon neutrality, the newly installed capacity of solar thermal in 2021 is slightly increased, but we have many difficulties should be overcome. So what's the difficult as compared with photovoltaic or heat pump system? The solar thermal system more complex and cost higher. So this is a main barrier for promotion of solar thermal technology. This is not only for China, but also for other countries in the world. So we should overcome all these difficult. So it's over. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Zheng. So very interesting presentation. Professor Zheng gave us a better insight into the Chinese market from small residential applications to large-scale systems. Interesting, also showing us a large system with 100% solar fraction. That's also very interesting. And she has also reassured us that solar thermal is still a key solution in China. So thank you very much. And without further ado, I would like to introduce the next speaker. So Werner Lepp is a journalist, so with long experience in the sector and well known in the sector. And she is also the editor of solarthermalworld.org, which many of you might know, and if you don't know, I really strongly recommend you to visit his website to get more information and updated information about solar thermal around the world. And besides her activity in consultant, she's also a contributor to a very comprehensive and interesting section on solar heating and cooling markets and industry in the REN 21 Global Status Report. So Bärbel will let us know more about this idea of a global solar heat industry, in particular giving us a closer look into the business and technology trends. So thank you very much, Bärbel, and please let us know. I'm curious.
Thank you, Pedro. Yeah, I will share my screen. Does this look good?
Yeah, all good to go.
Okay, perfect. Yes, well, As Pietro already mentioned, we did a lot of data gathering in the first quarter of the year, and this is mainly for the drafting of the chapter on solar heating and cooling for the Global Status Report, which was launched last week. It's a 300-page heavy document where 600 people contributed, and we will gather in the next 1-2 weeks the key findings on solar heat for all of you. And this is mainly one chapter and a few charts. And the second very important survey we carry out each time at the beginning of the year is linked to this world map, where we have listed a lot of suppliers that do solar industrial heat, and we update this world map once a year and question the manufacturers for their business development in the previous year. So the key core findings from the Global Status Report is this chart. It looks a bit like what Werner showed already. It's a bit more detailed. It shows the 20 largest markets in terms of new addition in the year 2021, also divided by the installed collector capacity. And it shows that we had, again, an interesting mix of growing and declining markets. And for the first time, as we have an overall plus, more growing markets, and this is really exciting. So I want to look a bit closer into some of the larger markets and give you the reasons, because as our sector is fairly complex, each country has its own drivers. So China is listed here with -2. This has to do with the export figures, which we delete from the overall Chinese figures we get. I think the drivers there were really the rebound of the economy. Construction sector was really strong again in 2021. Then there was some marketing activities by the company started, which is like a trade-in. They offered the residential clients to bring back their boilers or their solar water heaters, and they got a recharge, for the new system. So this sort of increased sales in the small scale. And this green heating policy also drove markets, which Professor Chen also mentioned. It's worth to look into India. India became the second largest market in last year's ranking. It's now with 18% plus. It's now absolutely vacuum tube dominated country. You see here 92% vacuum tubes. This has to do with a very cost optimized way how Indian consumers look into products. So long lasting is less important. And what is interesting about India, it's mostly driven by solar obligation. So I think it's the strongest market outside Israel to show that solar obligations, if they are well implemented, can drive markets. In India, 70% of the new installations go to one single state, which is called Karnataka, and which had really strong electrical shutdowns 10 years back. And then this is when they said, okay, we don't shower with electric anymore, but with solar, and made it a very strict rule. And houses do not get linked to electricity grid if they don't have a solar water heater. So this drives the markets there. Turkey is stable, but our figures from Turkey are not so reliable because they don't have an association there, and it's a bit unsecure. They have half and half vacuum tubes and flat plates, and the tourism sector is sort of the backbone of the industry as well, which has very short paybacks. Brazil developed nicely last year with 28% plus. And this was also, like in India, a bit the effect that people who stayed a lot of time at home during the pandemic thought about how they can improve their house. And they started to look into, pool heating and solar water heating. In some other countries that happened as well. Besides, Brazil always had these peak years when there were power cuts. And they had, again, because of dry, they have a lot of water power. And if the lakes are dry, then they shut down certain times the electricity grid. And this is always waking up the people saying, oh, there's an alternative in a sunny country. So Brazil really profited from that. Germany with 0% was absolutely disappointing. I think that this is an effect that solar thermal was part of a very nice subsidy scheme, which continued in 2021. But, as we are not a monovalent, a lone standing technology, heat pumps and biomass boilers and so on made the race, and solar thermal was not really performing. Also, as Werner already mentioned, not so many large systems were put online because there is some delays in the subsidy schemes. France was the opposite to this trend. You know, France profited a lot from large-scale systems. For the first time, a third of the market in France were megawatt installations. So this is what made this a big plus of 70% in France. And Italy, I think, was already mentioned that this was the solar bonus, which was a special, tax reduction, 110% tax reduction for investments into housing efficiency. But this was an unique one for 2021. So let's see how the market will develop there. So you see multiple reasons, multiple countries. And this was about the market. Now, how about the industry? This ranking you might have seen before. It shows the largest flat plate collector manufacturers worldwide based on last year's production. And it's always dominated by China. As Werner said, you know, in China, flat plate collectors are growing faster than the market. So it's really, they're gaining market share. And the large manufacturers profit a lot from the big volumes that the housing industry asked them to deliver, because this cannot be responded by smaller manufacturers. And this is linked to the solar obligations in the cities also a lot. But Rijin did really well. They ranked third here. It's an Austrian manufacturer, the largest we have in Europe. And they profited from the sort of strong consolidation which takes place in Europe at the moment, that smaller collector manufacturers close their manufacturing because of this long, slow market development that we have seen over 8 years. And larger manufacturers can take over their volumes as OEM. So they just provide them OEM collectors, and the others close down their factories. So this is an effect why we see a strong consolidation in the market. The Chinese altogether, the Chinese flat plate collector manufacturers altogether gained 7%, which is again also stronger than the market. And the European manufacturers in this ranking even completely reversed the trend from -12% a year earlier in the ranking to +21%. So that shows that these recovery subsidy schemes that we had in some countries in Europe really profited also the European manufacturers. And there's also Greece really to mention as well, because Greece is a very strong industry in the meantime. 3 manufacturers from this relatively small country are in the ranking, and this has to do that they are export champions. You know, they have doubled within 7 years the volumes they produce for the national market and the exports, and really building industries there. And it's a nice case study to see that we can scale up industry if there's really demand. We have asked these companies as well, how did you cope with the industry, with the material prices? And obviously all of them confirmed that they had to suffer about, they had to increase the collector prices because of these raw material price increases. And they also received smaller margins. So I think their volumes increased, but the overall business performance was also very dense, you know, because they of these smaller margins. And the recovery funds as an impact, as a positive impact on the market, was agreed on mostly by European manufacturers and not so much outside Europe. Now we turn to the ship market. As I have shown you before, this world map, which is on, you find it on solar-payback.com/suppliers. And this is the sort of the variety of companies which is listed on this world map. It's updated very recently. So we have sent a questionnaire to all the companies. We have asked them, what is your business idea? Some were dropping from the list and so on. I have put you little arrows next to the collector manufacturing that they are doing. You know, we have about 21 which are technology neutral. They only plan systems. They don't have their own production, but the majority of these companies still produce an old collector module. That shows that we are fairly early in developing ship, because, you know, usually we need more planners which just purchase turnkey systems from the industry. But in the meantime, the collector manufacturers develop the projects themselves. So you see from the arrows that there is a clear shift from the stagnatory collectors like vacuum tube and flat plates towards concentrating ones. So it seems that more and more concentrating collector manufacturers find it interesting to provide solar industrial heat in also higher temperatures, and they gain market share. So overall, we have now 15 parabolic draft manufacturers listed on the world map. We have 6 linear Fresnel ones and 5 concentrating dishes. This has to do that this technology also spreads outside India now. It's not all these parabolics as you see there, but they have different models and we gather them there. So there's a spread of this technology also to Canada and other countries. And for the first time, we have PVT, which was also mentioned at Werner's presentation, listed here with 2 manufacturers from Spain, as this becomes also an interesting technology for some drying applications in agricultural. Here you see the hubs of the industry marked as companies that have done more than 10,000 square meters in ship. And these are the classical markets which always are linked to, you know, solar industrial heat. You have Mexico, which was mentioned by Werner. You have obviously China with a lot of manufacturers, and you have India, which is unfortunately declining a lot. And you have a lot of manufacturers, well, some manufacturers also in Europe. These these info charts, they are available online below the world map. So if you want to get back to them, there are more of these info type of style. Yeah, you see here, this is what happened with the ship market over the years. We have started 2017 with questioning the industry, what they have done as solar industrial heat plants. And we have started with 107 systems, 153 megawatt, and actually we saw some decline in the market, well, in the last times it's almost flat, sort of to say, and this has to do a lot with the performing of India, because India started well in 2017 with 22 systems, but they had only 1, I think, or 2 in the year 2021 because the subsidy scheme was stopped, and there was a sort of really a problem in performing of systems. So this sort of happened that India's ship market sort of more or less collapsed. And also Mexico has big fluctuations. We had this peak year 2018 when 51 projects were reported from Mexico, and this is now down to a lot less in the year 2021. In Europe, the number stays more and more stable, and we get a lot more in agricultural. So that I think we can be fairly confident with 50 to 60 systems in the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah, to stay on this, that 2021 was really a very weak ship market. I want to give you these very striking figures again, that among the manufacturers that we questioned, only 7 out of 48 that answered this question were satisfied with their business development. So the reasons why, you know, business development is difficult in ship are listed here below from the statements of the manufacturers. The development times are too long. You know, you have less room, for example, in India, and everything is, their whole attention is allocated to PV. In Austria, it says, you know, long lead times, and sometimes decision-making processes take very long. The government in Mexico has really stopped a bit supporting, and you have, like the Israeli company says, low awareness and backwinds from heat pumps. So several reasons, and this has resulted that among the around 80 ship manufacturers we contacted this year, only 16 have commissioned 1 single project. This is 20%. So that means that overall, some companies only realize a project every 2nd year or something. And now I want to really show you that the variety of projects getting wider. These are some projects that were realized in 2021, and we can see some interesting trends there. And also the pipeline is very nicely filled, better than probably ever before. I will show this in the next slides. So what we have seen here is that I mean, this is not by scale, this is not by size now, this is more by the special or innovativeness of the projects, you know. First is the fact that we have seen more ESCO projects for the first time in 2021 again. Inventive Power from Mexico did the first one for this food processor, a smaller one. New Heat, Kyotherm, commissioned the 10 megawatt plant in a melting plant in the south of France. And there are more to come. There are more players that concentrate on ESCO and say not selling equipment anymore, but sell solar heat contracts instead. And PVT, as I mentioned already, this is a big installation that was subsidized in Spain, 3.5 megawatt. It's an air drying system with partly covered with PVT, an interesting one. Then we have succeeded, TVP Solar have succeeded to do one of the very few first ones in Brazil, which was really a hard to tackle country in the past. And we have seen also another concentrating one for electricity production. So that is a special news from there. And we have also a unique plant, I think, by Soliterm in Turkey. It's a cigarette packaging company in Izmir, which have done already the second field, actually. The first one was 4.2 megawatt, and now they added another 3.8 megawatt, and they inaugurated this huge plant last week, I think. And this will, I think, hopefully hit the news in Turkey, which they are very nice irradiation to have follow-up projects in this solar industrial heat domain. Yeah, and now what is in the pipeline? We have asked the companies, because, you know, the numbers in 2021 were low, what do you have under construction? And we found that there is a big amount of especially concentrating systems under construction by year's end. So some of them, even this California one from Sunvapor, where I have a picture there, is already commissioned in February. So this is the status quo from the beginning of the year, and all these systems will be commissioned over the year. And this has to do with nice subsidies in California. There are big parabolic draft programs coming up, plans coming up, you know, planned for September. Then we had this huge funding by IDIE in Spain, the thermal energy production. That's how it was called, the funding project. It allocated money to the regions, and we have a lot more to come. And we had like the high coal project, which was a new project, which resulted in 2 Fresnel systems that were installed by Ecotherm in Spain. So this totals to 40,000 square meters of concentrating collector area, and the whole market in 2021 in concentrating heat was only 12,000 square meters. So you see that only what is mentioned here now is already a 4th time more in coming online this year. So it seems that there was a kind of, you know, really delay because of the pandemic, some projects delayed. And now we really bear the fruits of these subsidy schemes, the long-term subsidy schemes, and we will see some very nice presentations, systems coming up. Yeah, 2 big announcements, which are also, I think, worth mentioning. This system on the left-hand side, a 77 megawatt parabolic draft collector field, is supposed to be constructed until the end of the year by Inner Mongolia Ruicheng. It supplies a leisure park in Handang in China, and this whole field, what looks like an airplane road here in the back, is completely filled with these parabolic draft collectors producing hot water and snow for the leisure park, which must be CO2 neutral, otherwise it was not allowed to be built. And another exciting announcement came from the new Class Point, which was, liquidated, went into insolvency 2 years ago, and it's now reinvented, restarted by some venture capital people, different sponsors than before. And they have signed a memorandum of understanding with an aluminium producer in Saudi Arabia to build 1.5 gigawatt parabolic drafts in greenhouses. The older Class Point, the former Class Point, was the one who instructed the largest chip plants which we have in this world. This is 33 megawatt in Oman. And they built these plants because of their technology, very modular, in 30 megawatt plants. So we don't have to wait now 10 years until the 1.5 gigawatt might be one day you know, completed, but they will probably start again the same way like they did with this first plant in Oman, just to get them in blocks ready, and they can start already providing steam while they are constructed. Yeah, and this is not even all for announcements. And I wanted to share also these news with you. And these are multi-megawatt systems in Europe, which are very confirmed. You know, they are not. It's not like they are still in this sort of vague mood. But Heineken and Engie really made this press release there, announcing that they will together with Solarlight in Germany install a 30 megawatt parabolic draft system for a beer factory in Sevilla. The grants are secured already by this program that I already mentioned by EDIE, and only the challenge is that they have to bring this online in operation by June 23. And okay, we have another project by New Heat, 15 megawatt, which is already construction already started. This is outcome from the ADEME project in France. This is the second mentioned here. New Heat has also secured funding, 3.5 million from EU Innovation Fund to build 25 megawatt malting plant in Croatia. This is actually the same company that did the 10 megawatt plant this year. And it's Boltmund, the largest, world largest malt producer, which has 27 factories. So the case study from New Heat here shows that for the first time it was able to get a multinational cooperator, you know, and to bring them maybe in a comfortable situation with solar heat, so that they will do more than one system with their plants. And also, which is from the direction of solar district heating, the Pristina announcement is also fairly confirmed. It's a 48 megawatt district heating plant, was announced in March, and the decision has been taken by the Kosovo government and the city together. And the financing is provided by German government, KfW, and EBRD, the European Bank of Restructuring and Development. So as the financing is also sort of approved already, I think, and the areas are there, I think this will come also. So only these few ones that are listed here, which are really confirmed, bring us up to 195 megawatt large-scale systems. And there are more which are under visibility studies. So I think that this is really something in Europe which we have not seen like this before. And it's, well, it gives us an optimistic mood. And the big advantage that is linked to these megawatt plants is really the costs, because we have seen from the Denmark solar district heating market that economies of scale bring solar heat costs down. And this curve here shows the 110 megawatt solar district heating systems in Denmark that were installed together with, you know, the Austrians and the German ones. And the curve shows that with a doubling of the size of the system, the costs go down by 14%. And Michael Taylor made this saying that solar thermal isn't expensive, but the lack of market scale is. And we keep this really in mind if these megawatt plants will be a really good opener for bringing costs down as well as visibility. And this is also another interesting exercise where we can sensibilize policymakers with, you know, the Silkeborg plant, which is the largest solar district heating plant currently in Europe, with 110 megawatt. If you place this with the costs it was realized with 2016 on other sites in Europe, you know, if you go there to Belgrade in Serbia or Croatia or Spain, you receive much lower heat costs. And if you think about the current gas prices, I think that solar heat has really an important role to play. So this was it from my side. And just want to go back here. You find all these charts on Solrico webpage. There is a sub-page on cost assessments. And if you want to have more information on these charts, there are many more that we have done together with Irina. You can confirm them there and download them there. So this was it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Berbel. So quite very interesting as we would expect. So you have let us know some interesting aspects, the question of the increase of materials leading also to the increase of prices, but also lower margins for manufacturers, and that manufacturers are skeptic about the current situation. But we also have good news with the projects in the large scale, in particular for ship, or the glass point with 1.5 gigawatts or 200 megawatts attributed in Europe and under development. So those are also interesting news. So with this, we move now to the Q&A session. I also invite the other speakers, Werner Weiss and Professor Zheng to join us. And I would start with a question to Werner Weiss from one of the participants. So the question was related to the market status, the current market status of hot water absorption chillers, especially the small scale units in the range of 1 to 5 tons. Can you tell us something about this market, these products, Werner?
Yeah, thank you for this question. Yeah, the cooling, so solar thermal cooling, there's a chapter in the report. Just due to the fact that we had not enough time, I could not capture all chapters we have in the report. So you can go always also to the report to go find more details. In general, there's a growing demand worldwide on small scale cooling. Just for India, for instance, about 60% of the electric summer peak load is just on cooling. So and it's not just in China or in India. So there's an increasing demand, but on the other hand, the small scale systems are really under pressure from PV driven cooling units. So this a little bit, it's a very small niche market still, the small scale solar thermal cooling systems. We have about 2,000 systems are installed worldwide at the moment on these small scale systems, whereas about, if I remember right, it's about 70% installed in Europe. So that's a challenging market with increasing gas and electricity prices. Of course, this market opens. I'm quite confident because then it's getting more competitive. What is, from the economic point of view, significantly better is the large-scale solar cooling systems with cooling capacity above 300 or 500 kilowatt. What I wanted to mention just finally to this topic, in the new edition of Solar Heat Worldwide, at the end of each chapter, you find a link to the solar heating and cooling tasks or projects where you find more information. For instance, on solar cooling, there's a link to task 65 where you find all publications directly if you download the Solar Heat Worldwide report. So to find even more information if you want to go in more detail.
Very good. Thank you very much. And in the meantime, you also addressed another question with your remark on the competition from PV cooling. Professor Zheng, I will then ask you put another question from the audience. So, how is a 100% solar fraction achieved with a 50.3% efficiency at the same time? Is there no alternative energy source? So when no sun is shining, less heat is delivered? And this relates to the large system in Tibet, if I remember well, with 100% solar fraction. So could you enlighten us on this question, Professor Zheng?
Okay. As this system has a water storage tank, And this tank can storage more solar energy to supply heat when no sun. And the collector area should be designed to meet the heating demands. Although the average efficiency is only 50.3%, and this value is a higher solar collector efficiency. So we put a water storage tank so can meet the solar fraction 100%. Yeah, so seasonal storage is very important. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. I would then go to Verbal App with another question. So one of participants was asking where to get investment costs of solar systems and related analysis so that we can create trend line of investment to be used for research projects of systems economic organization. So you mentioned a report with also an analysis of costs in your presentation. So maybe that's part of the question, but Barbara, I'm sure you'll get
yes, well, thank you. Yeah, well, the assessment that we did with IRENA is based on 900 systems that were where we had costs for, and they cover the range of commercial above 50 square meters, and we have cooperated a lot with agencies like energy agencies in the past 1.5 years, and also with researchers who wanted to use part of this data. So this is really the role of IRENA to look into the database and see whether for their particular case, I mean, that always depends a bit. If they tell me they want to have concentrating in India, I will tell them, okay, I have not enough systems or something, you know. So it depends a bit what is exactly asked, but please contact me on this. And this is exactly the idea of IRENA's cost assessment reports they are doing regularly, you know, to support researchers and modelers on how to assess solar heat costs today and in the future.
Okay, very good, thank you. So I would then put a question and open the floor for those of you that would like to address it. So the question is, technology costs is shared by increasing the capacity and utilization of installed big system. How to deal with installation? What is technologically speaking more challenging? Modularity or the bulkiness of the system, so the size of the system, I guess.
No, this was a complicated one.
It's a, yeah. I don't know, Werner, verbal. What was the question that was not clear? So should I read again, or you're struggling to find the?
It was somehow interlinked. The question. Read it again.
Yeah. So I would focus. So the question addresses the technology costs being. I assume it's talking about being dissipated by increasing the capacity. So costs being reduced by increasing the capacity and also how much the system is used. So what will be in this case the main challenges for the installation? So what is technologically more challenging? The model doing it in a modular way, or the modularity of such systems, so large systems, or the bulkiness. I understand this way, but maybe yes, I'm also not putting it in the clearest way.
I try to give an answer. I think the modularity, it was basically really shown very well by Bärbel in her chart showing the case of Denmark. there we had really one company who installed a lot of large-scale systems. So they had a modularity, and they could reduce significantly the cost. So that there you see economy of scale, and they have pre-manufactured, or the same approach how they do it and optimized it. There they brought the price really significantly down. And on the other hand, the other companies worldwide, there are not so many companies who installed something like 50 systems or 20 systems. So they are still in the, I would say, in the demonstration status. So this modularity does not exist. Usually they are planned case by case, especially in the ship systems. And therefore you don't see up to now, it's at least my observation, this economy of scale, because it's not always the same company who can learn. You have this nice learning curve, which Bärbel showed in the Danish case. This is exactly where we have to go. And I think it's not we have to come to modularity, so to have large-scale systems, how to install it with the crane installation. So no problem at all. We saw in Denmark to install 1,000 square meters per day or even more. But we need more companies who can do this, and then this price reduction is possible. Maybe this answered a little bit the question.
But we have to add here that really the ship projects, which are also included in this chart, follow the trend curve, you know, and they were done by other suppliers and in other countries. So let's see when we have like 10 larger, you know, above 10 megawatt systems in Europe in terms of ship, I think we will see that they sort of harmonize with this curve as well. I think there's a logic in that also large ship plants will reduce costs in the sense, even if they are more uniquely planned. But well, we will know this only in 2 or 3 years' time, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you very much. So next question, I think I will direct it to Werner. So regarding PVT, how efficient could the solar heat in a PVT system in zones of latitude 0B, so around the equator line?
So the question might be, how is it more efficient than in Europe or so?
For instance, yeah.
As you all might know, that the highest radiation is not around the equator. Usually about 20 degrees north and south of the equator, we have the highest radiation within the range of 2,000 kilowatt hours or even more per square meter, and you have half of it in Northern Europe. So simply answer is you double basically the output with the same investment if you go to the sun belt. And the sun belt, as I said, is usually about 20 degrees north and south of the equator. The equator, due to the humidity, it's lower radiation than 20 degrees north and south. But depending a little bit, of course, on the application, but in essence, you can assume that you get double the output.
Okay, thank you very much. So next question, I would ask both Professor Zheng and Bärbel. So the increase in ship collectors assembled mostly inside, so this is information. Could that be because manufacturers are trying to avoid the use of copper, or maybe concentrated systems are not subjected to such certifications as flats or evacuated tube collectors? So I don't know if the question is fully clear to you, but maybe we can try to enlighten the person asking.
Well, I would obviously say that concentrating systems are for sure most of the time, well, assembled on site because they are shipped in pieces. Whereas if you have a flat plate collector system, you know, it's the same like a solar district heating one. You work with cranes, as Werner said, you know, and you have a fast installation. So for this one, I think that makes, you know, the difference in terms of which collector technology you use. How the copper plays into that, I'm not so sure. I cannot really imagine what the copper has to do with assembling, actually.
Okay, Professor Zheng, do you have?
I think I think concentrated systems is for high temperature application, such as power. But for heating, such as hot water, don't need that so high temperature. So flat plate collector is suitable, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we need to wrap up. I would just have a final question, and this is very dear to us and to discussions we've been having in Europe recently. The question is saying, in the European Union, the Repower EU plan includes a solar rooftop initiative that will implement a legal obligation to install solar panels, PV, on new buildings, public, commercial, and residential. In my opinion, this will heavily and negatively impact the deployment of solar thermal in the EU and will lead to rooftop space competition between PV and solar thermal. How do you see this initiative? Do you consider there is still room for solar thermal in the EC policies, also considering the huge difference between R&D funding for solar thermal and PV technologies? Before challenging Werner, Weiss, and Bärbel for this last question, I would like to comment on this and to make an important clarification. In this case, to João Cardoso, which was asking, the EU Solar Rooftop Initiative is not about PV, is about solar. So it covers both PV and solar thermal. So there is understanding often that solar in the media and also with policymakers, and that solar refers to PV, but that's not what the text says. So the text sets some targets on PV, so that doesn't help to clarify. But formally and confirmed to us by the Commission, even yesterday, we had an event in Brussels and we had a representative of the Commission confirming this is solar rooftop initiative is both for solar thermal and for solar PV. So it's very important that this implementation afterwards at national level takes this into account and is not only looking into PV. Then the other part of the question, and getting back to Werner and Bärbel, sorry, but I wanted to really make this clarification. I think this is a misunderstanding that is happening often. So is there still room for solar thermal in EC policies? So what is your opinion?
Well, I think you answered already. Okay. No, you answered your question more or less already yourself. I mean, it's a challenge to do the communication on the national level in the sense that solar obligations must be technology neutral. And we see that in Germany now, that our first solar obligations that the Green government did were sort of very PV oriented, and it took a big effort to say, okay, put solar thermal there inside as well. So this is the communication effort of the sector to bring in all these rules PV and solar thermal. And as the international markets show us a lot, obligations can do a lot of good for generally deployment of solar technologies on roofs and facades. So let's see how this communication effort what this will bring. Werner, maybe you want to add to that.
Well, I think clear, yes, there is room on European level. What we have to do is to communicate that, as you know, heat is half. And this is also what the sector has to communicate, that the heat is half of the final energy demand in Europe. And it will not be enough to electrify everything. So you have the big challenge in Europe first of all, to replace all fossil fuel-based electricity by renewables, a huge challenge. Then electrify the mobility, and then electricity is just 20% and 50% is heat. Even if a part of it is electrified, there's a huge room for solar thermal. So our work we have to do is for sure to communicate better that heat is half.
Very, very good. Thank you very much. And a lot more could be said also on this topic. And from our side, from Solid Europe, and if you allow us, we have also just published a solar thermal roadmap, so energizing Europe with solar heat. We also invite you to read that, and it will also help you to understand more also on the policy side, what are some of the measures that can be taken and the role that solar thermal can take. If you allow me that publicity for our freshly published roadmap that we are launching yesterday here in Brussels. So with this said, I want to thank very much the speakers for the presentations. I think once again, the time is not enough for how much information and all the knowledge that the high quality speakers we have in this presentation have year after year. But it was very interesting, and I think it was already a good point, and with the information reports there's much more to be seen. So from my side, I want to thank the IEA Solar Academy, IEA SHC and ISIS for the invitation. Again, thank very much for our brilliant speakers, and this is it from our side. So I hope you enjoyed the webinar, and I now to close, I give now the baton back to Arabella for a final message. Thank you very much, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, Pedro, and thank you very much to all of our speakers for the interesting presentations, and obviously also to our audience for all your questions. We always very much enjoy that exchange. Now I only have a few more final informations for you before we close for today. The first one is on the webinar recording and the presentations. Yes, this webinar has been recorded. We are still recording it just now. And that recording will be made available to you both on the ISIS and the IEA SHC Solar Academy in a few days. So the webinar recording will be definitely there, as well as the presentations as they were given by the speakers. And usually they also include contact details, so if you wanted to reach out, you can. Just a quick note for our ISIS members, you already have unlimited access to all ISIS webinars in our ISIS webinar archive. You know how to find it. It's in your membership area. Yeah, so just for ISIS members. And then my final announcement is something we already mentioned a few times across this webinar, and that is our upcoming conference, Eurozone 2022, this year in September in Kassel here in Germany. It's a joint venture by ISIS and the IEA SHC, and I'm very much looking forward to it, and I know many of our speakers will be joining us. And I wanted to let all of you know that the conference registration will open quite soon. So head over to our homepage, which is eurozone2022.org, to learn more. We have 20 themes covering many, if not all, aspects of solar. So I think that the program is actually looking really good, and we invite you to learn more on the conference homepage. Yep. And with that, I would like to close the webinar for today. Thank you all very much for joining us. ISIS will be back with a next monthly webinar in August, and we will have the IEA SHC Solar Academy also back again this year in fall. So we invite you to join and stay up to date on our home pages. And with that, thank you very much for joining. We are ending the webinar now. Goodbye.